I am Casey Ray from Future Music Coalition. Hope you guys are having a good summit. This is our 14th Future Music Policy Summit, which means, I've been here for 7 or 8 of them. I'm getting a little gray. Summit's getting a little grayer, I think, in some ways. But we're always trying to figure out ways to bring new and younger voices into the conversation, which is why I am super excited about the next little chat that we're going to have for you today. I met Kiran Gandhi, who is one of our next pair of speakers, through a Georgetown alumni and former FMC intern who was really, really excited for us to connect. And boy, am I glad that we did. From the moment I met Kiran, I was struck by her energy, her intellectual curiosity. She's also a total rock star, like a legit rock star. Kiran is the touring drummer for M.I.A. She's a Georgetown grad and is currently a Harvard MBA candidate who's attempting to solve some of the trickier issues in the music business in a way that's a little bit different from the big ego, command and control, total dude fest that was yesterday's industry. But Kiran's already been inside the machine. She was Interscope Records' first ever digital analyst, and she continues to use her background in mathematics, data, and music to approach these tough problems. Her recent TEDx talk on atomic living is all about diving headlong into experiences and fashioning new possibilities out of them. So Kiran might be on the younger side, but she's already got an admirable commitment to a more diverse and inclusive music industry built on an ethos of collaboration and engagement, and we are pretty into that. Her conversation partner, Michelle Davis, is one of our favorite young legal stars. I met Michelle when longtime REM counsel Bertus Downs suggested her to me for an internship. I was like, yeah, okay, well, can she write? Totally. Michelle, before she entered law school, was the music editor at the Athens, Georgia alt newsweekly Flagpole magazine. I've always been super impressed with Michelle's ability to translate complex legal and policy stuff into something that regular human beings can understand. And she does a ton of that as the organizer for Project Athens Music Conference and as a person who is always working to increase the knowledge base of musicians in her hometown and beyond. Oh, and did you know that Michelle does stand-up comedy? She does. She's awesome. She kills. I saw her do it. And even more recently than that, she sang karaoke in front of Jarvis Cocker from Pulp. And that was pretty freaking fearless. All of this is to say that I'm thrilled to introduce you to 2 young women who I sincerely believe are going to change this industry for the better. So please join me in welcoming Kiran Gandhi and Michelle Davis.
Hi, Future of Music. This is so exciting. We're at the Future of Music Coalition Conferences Policy Summit.
Look at these armchairs. Very masterpiece theater. I'm used to doing my comedy standing up, but all right, it's not working tonight. So I'm Michelle. This is Kiran. So excited to be here and to have a conversation with all of you. We hope that there's opportunities for you guys to chime in. Of course, we're here to give you all the answers on how to make millions of dollars in the music industry because we did it. It's totally easy. And no, we don't have any answers. We're just getting started. But I think, like so many of the panelists, maybe every panelist I've seen here wears many hats in the industry, whether they're artists and entrepreneurs or they own a label and they are doing writing on the side. So we're going to talk a little bit about balancing those interests and how that's kind of worked out for us. But Kiran, I want to kind of turn it over to you as a perfect example of this. Drummer for M.I.A. and then deciding to pursue a business degree at Harvard. What, as a talented musician, what drove you to pursue higher education? Why business school?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. So I was at Georgetown. I graduated in 2011. I did a double major in political science and mathematics, and I did my minor in women's and gender studies. And I remember thinking I was going to come to Georgetown to do politics. I was doing all my internships in the summer with the local mayor. I was trying to work on Hillary Clinton's campaign earlier in 2006. And around when I turned 21, I started playing drums out in the clubs in DC. I was at 18th Street Lounge a lot. And the kind of feeling of euphoria I would get when playing drums was just unparalleled to anything else that I had experienced. And the musicians in DC, because it's such a small community and because DC's sort of public identity is really more about government, I felt that the local music scene was very inclusive. And a lot of the local musicians, I don't know if anyone's been to hear the reggae band CI on Wednesdays, their Thievery Corporation's band, they took me in. And I started sitting in with them every Wednesday. And they would let me sit in on congas just on one song. I would beg to play. I would come religiously and they'd let me sit in. So it became a thing in my junior and my senior year. And then in my senior year, the lounge, 18th Street Lounge, gave me a show of my own on Sundays to play live percussion alongside the DJ. And I would be like backstage studying my flashcards or whatever if I had a test the next day, but I always made it work because it made me feel so good. And when something makes you feel so good, you're like, God, well, why should I have to live a life where by day I'm this one thing, politics, whatever, math major, and by night I'm like happy Kiran, you know, playing drums in the nightclubs. So I said, I really want to go work for a record label. It will be so cool, man. I can maybe use the math. Like, I'm smart. Georgetown's a real school. I mean, like, this is going to be great. Maybe I can try to go work at a record label. So I applied to Interscope Records, and I got a job there. But I really was let in only as an intern. It was when the head of the digital marketing department there found out that I was a math major, and she said, listen, you want a job, right? You've already graduated. I said, yes. And she said, okay, well, we have all this new data coming in from YouTube, from Spotify, from Facebook, from Twitter, mentions. But none of us have a department or a way of dealing with all this stuff. I mean, this is 2011. It's like a little embarrassing that this was the case, but this was the truth. And why don't you play with these numbers? Why don't you see what we find? What's the correct amount of streams we can expect on Spotify for an artist of Lady Gaga's caliber, for an artist of Kendrick Lamar's caliber? What should we expect when Schoolboy Q puts out an album? Are they going to stream song by song? Are they streaming album by album? What do those numbers look like? So for 2 years, that's what I was doing. But at the end of those 2 years, what happened was I kind of felt like, what's my next step? You know, how do I move forward? What's going to be? I mean, am I going to be like a super digital marketer? Like, it's super cool. And I thought, well, what do I love? I love to drum. But I also love this thing. I love being able to use my math and my background to be able to be on the innovation side, to recognize the fact that we are in this industry right now where new ideas are actually welcome. And you don't need to be someone who's starting necessarily in the mailroom the way it was 20 years ago. So while there's a negative in that, yes, there's not a set path for someone who wants to be in the music industry, the positive is that if you use your mind, there's a space to be able to contribute as a creative and as an intellectual, and I loved that. So in that moment, I did two things. I went up to Diana Cass, who's the M.I.A. Product manager on the Interscope side. M.I.A. is an artist who's signed to Interscope. And I sort of cheekily was like, listen, M.I.A. doesn't have a drummer, you know, and she needs a drummer. I mean, the whole thing is beat-oriented. The stage they put her on is huge, okay? She's by herself there. There's one dancer there, one DJ, like, far off on the other side. She needs a drummer, man. So then I didn't think this would happen, but Diana took me at face value. She's like, okay, if you're for real, send me a video. Don't tell your boss, but send me a video. So then I hustled to get all my homies in LA. I was living in downtown LA in the arts district in a place called ArtShare, and a lot of these friends of mine were very talented. We put together a video, we sent it to Diana. Diana puts it in front of M.I.A., and then that day, this is February 2013, about a year and a half ago, M.I.A. emails me back directly to my inbox, and it was like this crazy email. It was like all capital letters in the subject line. It was like, and then it said, hi, like, hi. And then it said, we're not thinking about, no, thanks for the video. This is dope. We're not thinking about the tour yet. We'll hit you up when we do. Now, that was enough. Like, validation from M.I.A. about my drumming was, like, good for, like, the next 5 years. I would have been just happy on that. So that happened. Simultaneously, I thought, what's the next step for me as a business thinker, as a business leader, as someone who can contribute as an intellectual to the music industry? It's an industry. It's a business. So I said, well, what if I apply for my MBA? Because wouldn't that be cool to get a super high-level skill set of all different kinds of theories and ideas that are being applied to tons of other industries that are making tons of money? And how can we bring those back to music? In music, you didn't need an MBA. You needed to be the niece or the nephew of Jimmy Iovine. But now you can go and be smart and then think creatively about what these other industries are doing and bring it back. I applied to Harvard. I got in March. I left Interscope. I had the summer off, as MBAs do. Many of them go on yacht cruises. I was just sweetly drumming in downtown LA. I got an email from M.I.A.'s tour manager in June. Can you come on the road for the next 4 dates? Canada, Toronto, Montreal, Detroit, Chicago, Pitchfork Music Festival. I said, yeah, I think I can make it. Oh, what the fuck? So that happened. I said yes. I flew out. I played the shows. I was training. It was super intense. I had never done anything like that before, and that happened. Then I started school. I thought the tour was behind me, and then they asked for more dates. But I will end it there because that is the answer to the question of why I thought pursuing higher education made sense for me.
Very cool. So yeah, what a great story.
Thank you.
It's that easy. I mean, I think, the takeaway really is you just have to create your own opportunities. I think that's true for everyone. You can't wait for anything to be handed to you. You got to see, where can I fit in and
Yes.
and how can I reach out and make something for myself. You never know what connections are going to sort of pan out.
Yes.
But so far, how you've been in the business school for just a few months now, or has it been a year?
It's been a year and a half.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
So what have been the main takeaways? What have you learned so far? Have you felt like that was the right decision?
Yeah. In the beginning, it was really hard. Harvard Business School is really structured, and that was difficult. But looking back already after my first year, there were I would say there's 3 things that I got really stoked about learning that I felt directly apply to the music industry. Has anyone heard of this concept of jobs to be done? What is the job to be done? There's this professor at Harvard called Clay Christensen, and he has this concept of jobs to be done. So he gives an example. He and his team of top marketers went to Cold Stone Creamery. Cold Stone was selling these milkshakes. They chocolate, strawberry, banana, whatever. And they want to sell more because they're doing well. So they poll all their customers. The customers say, yeah, we love chocolate, we love strawberry, put more strawberries, whatever. Cold Stone acts on the advice, but the numbers don't change. They're still making the same amount. So they call in the Harvard people, thank God. And the Harvard people say, okay, instead of assuming that the customers want more strawberries, let's observe them in their natural state. What are they doing? What is the job to be done such that these customers are choosing to buy a milkshake? So they notice the first thing is that all these customers are choosing to buy the milkshake in the morning. That's actually quite strange. They buy the milkshake in the morning. Then the second commonality among all the people they chose of the top most common customers, they have a drive ahead of them after they purchase the milkshake of at least 45 minutes to 2 hours. So they find out, okay, well, why don't you buy a bagel for your breakfast? Why don't you have some, Yoplait yogurt? Oh, a bagel, man. How am I supposed to butter a bagel in my lap? All of the crumbs falling everywhere, Okay, a banana. Well, a banana, after half an hour, I'm hungry again. It doesn't do the job. So in that moment, the job to be done is fill my stomach and entertain me on my way to work. A milkshake lasts like an hour to gobble down, they said. And it's clean. It's easy. So that same mentality, I think, is what iTunes did. They said, what's the behavior? What's the job to be done in this moment? Everyone is everyone is illegally downloading. What's the job to be done here? Make it convenient, make it easily accessible, and then charge the customer for this service that fits in very naturally to what they're doing. This can be applied even today. If you look at behavioral patterns of consumers, let's say I look at my own demographic, my friends of graduate students on campus. They wake up, maybe go to the gym, go to class, maybe go out at night and then entertain people. There's various touch points for music delivery. If we are talking about music delivery, I'm looking more on the business side now, less on the artist side. There's touch points in the morning where the music can be the alarm clock. There's touch points when you go to the gym, when you're accessing your playlist on Spotify or whatever the music is that you use. There's touch points when you're walking around, you're in an elevator, music is playing. There's touch points in the evening when you're hosting your friends over. So for example, Songza, what does the consumer need? Something easy. They don't have time to be sitting there and curating a playlist. And second, they want to feed into sort of what I call the era of narcissism. Like Facebook has created this, I think, where all of us think we're super important. Like what I say and my music is like super important compared to your music, and I really know everything and you don't know anything. But I don't have time to really curate these playlists. I just want you to know my personality and then map it back to me. So then songs that just ask questions to you, like what mood are you in? Where are you? What are you trying to do? Okay, well I'm happy and I'm eating and I'm inviting my friends. Boom, here's the product. It's called Songza. Answer these questions. We will give you a curated playlist that meets these needs. So this is another example of jobs to be done. And I'll sort of stop it there.
So you're still touring with M.I.A. on occasion. You still have live music opportunities, and you're also still a student. So I think the natural question is, how do you balance all of those things? I know this talk is called Atomic Living, which is sort of a phrase that you coined. So what is atomic living? How do you live by those rules? And how does it play out in your time management?
Yeah. So last year, especially in my first year of business school, is when I was doing the tour and I was still in school. And the thing that made me really think about this concept of atomic living is actually that the TEDx committee in Brooklyn emailed me and they said, we'd love for you to come speak. We're really interested in the time management component. I said, listen, Hillary Clinton should be giving a time management talk, not me. It's like, come on, it's just two things. But I thought about how there's a literal example. There's like the literal answer, which is, okay, in the morning, this is what happened. In the morning, I would do my classes, and then I would fly. If we had a show in New York, for example, I would fly down, I would play the show, and then at 6 in the morning, I'd fly back and do my classes and like study the cases on the plane. That's the literal way. But I also felt that even before that, there's sort of a philosophical way of making sure that you're doing exactly what matters to you. And I think that can be applied to what's going on in the music industry now. So in my mind, I always imagine myself like a free little atom, like bouncing around. There's moments when I run into someone. That's how I met Casey. There's moments when I'm on a college campus and I run into a friend and I have a choice in that moment to be like, I'm too busy, I have to rush off, or to indulge and engage that conversation. There's moments even at Interscope when I ran into Diana Cass and I could talk about the M.I.A. thing or I could avoid it. For me, instead of having goals in mind, instead, I have passions that I've thought about ahead of time that matter to me. So for example, I have a couple: drumming, music, being a valuable contributor to the music industry, whatever that looks like. Gender equality is deeply important to me. What that looks like, what that feels like, how the music industry and images that we put out can contribute to how young women understand their own sexuality and their own being. Those are three passions of mine that I deeply care about. And I don't have any sense, even when I graduate, what I will do or what I want to do. I don't have necessarily goals in mind. But instead what I do is I try to use those three to inform any decision that I have moment to moment. So if I have an opportunity to go out for a bunch of drinks with a friend, or I have an opportunity to go and see a show, in my mind, I feel the show can satisfy my learning and those goals, so I will choose that. I think that's how I got to be able to do the M.I.A. tour and the MBA, because then in my mind it was just like drums and cases. Cases is how you learn at school. It was just drums and cases, and anything else just was out. So as all these things are flying at me, you can engage in the spontaneity of the things that can contribute to what matters to you, but you avoid other things that might be cluttered or distractions or noise.
And for people who are, professionals working full-time jobs, how do you see that sort of spontaneity being applied? Is it still possible?
Yeah, actually, one of my friends at school, he called me out on that. And he was like, okay, that's cute and all, but how am I supposed to live atomically in an office? Mm-hmm. And I actually think that the more you make these decisions, I imagine that you're optimizing for your surroundings. So when I was at Georgetown, I could have let pressures for me to go be in politics, and I would say the pressures are from both my parents and then also like what's a legit thing to study. Like politics sounds legit, music sounds like you're a stoner. Like that's what that is. So, those pressures. But what I told my friend who said, how can I live atomically in an office? I believe that if you got there atomically, i.e. you were authentic in every one of your choices because you did the brain work ahead of time to decide what matters to you, you will end up in an environment where not only you're happy to be there, but you're contributing positively. That's how I feel anyway about Interscope. I was happy to be there. Thank you. And it was Interscope, by being in that enclosed environment, that allowed me to run into Diana and develop a friendship with her, to be able to say to her, M.I.A needs a drummer. That wouldn't have happened had I not made the first decision. So I think actually that's how atomic living can apply to those settings.
I think I love that idea. I've never labeled it that way myself before, but I see so much of that in my career path so far, where you know, so many opportunities didn't come the kind of traditional way. It took a lot of initiative. When I had an internship right out of high school with a radio station, 99X in Atlanta, for any Atlanta people who might be here. You know, it could have just been hanging up banners and getting people's email addresses, because that was what the internship was. But I saw who was the music director, and I thought he had a really cool job, and so I made a point to say, hey, let's sit and let's talk. I want to get to know you. And we became really good friends. We had similar musical interests. And then when he kind of got to know what my interests were, he said, you should probably get an internship at a record label. So I spent a summer with Warner Brothers in Atlanta, and you know, I loved music. I wanted to write about it. I found opportunities. Interned with a publicist. I said, you know, I can do this. Started my own PR firm. And you just kind of have to, I guess, be open to meeting people and be available to those experiences. And what's awesome about that is you meet these mentors, like I had at the radio station, like Casey has been at the Future of Music. And I think that there's a real pay it forward sort of attitude, which really helps to boost the sort of collaborative spirit that we're hoping to encourage in the music industry. Because I'll always remember the people who helped me, who spend the time to guide me, to be a mentor. And I know that if I'm ever in a position to be a mentor, that I would gladly do the same for someone else. So I hope that that kind of positivity can kind of continue on, and we can create that sort of chain, you know, here. And I think there's lots of opportunities for that, even today, throughout the conference.
Michelle, I actually really want to ask you how you're balancing your creative pursuits with law school, because business school is supposed to be like the joke one compared to law school, you know, so you probably could speak even better to that.
I think I'm one of the weird ones that's like, law school's cool, I like it. But I think I had the advantage of working for 7 years before going to law school, so I think compared to undergrad, law school is maybe a shock. Compared to dealing with like people and bosses, in law school, really, when you get down to it, all you have to do is read. That's really all you have to do. And then you have to take an exam, which is 1 grade for your whole year, and that's a really stressful month. But again, you know, it's kind of like I knew I wanted to study music. I made the opportunities. I found a way to intern with Future of Music. I've done all these independent research projects that I'm able to get credit for, and I'm going to spend the summer learning about the consent decrees and PROs, because that's what I'm interested in, and that's weird maybe to some students, but and then in terms of how I balance that time, I've looked at the opportunities at the law school, like the Sports and Entertainment Law Society. A lot of law schools have something similar, and found a way that we can host panels kind of like this one, and then I get to bring all the experts that I would like to network with and meet to Athens, and get to know them that way. And I think so far, you know, well, I'm in my 3rd year now, I have another semester, that the best opportunities, the best interactions have all happened outside of the classroom, which maybe is tied to the sort of atomic living theme. But, and so in terms of balancing, you know, sometimes the reading doesn't get done for class the next day, but I picked an awesome panel, and that's going to be more important to me in the long run. And so you just kind of, I don't remember a time that I ever didn't have 10 million things going on, so I don't know what it's like to not be super stressed and overloaded, so maybe it just feels natural to me now. But you know, again, just putting your passions first and prioritizing that way has been really helpful.
Are we at 4 o'clock already?
If anyone has questions or comments or would like to share how maybe atomic living has played out in your life, please feel free. It doesn't have to just be the 2 of us talking up here. But Kiran, I wanted to ask you how you might have redirected what you've learned in business school into your creative pursuits since you've been at Harvard. Is there a way that you've kind of taken what you've learned in the classroom and integrated into your art? or maybe reaching out to other musicians who aren't in business school and sharing what you've learned, or?
That's a good question. Right now, my goal is to start my own project musically. The thing that I'm trying to do is actually amp up my Ableton Live skills. I'm taking lessons over at Maven. It's a DJ school in Boston. But the truth is that the way I see the two interacting most immediately is for me to use whatever musical project it is that I make as a testing ground for business theories. It would be so cool to be able to take theories from my digital marketing class and then test them out on my own project because the stakes are very low. This is the dream I have, but I haven't executed just yet.
Gotcha. Well, we'll all be looking out for the next vision. What have been, have you felt any kind of pushback? What have the sort of challenges been?
Yeah, actually, when Michelle and I were on the phone, you were telling me about some of the pushbacks that you had experienced, and I felt that the audience, it would be good for you to hear that, because I thought that was something that we can all relate to. I liked how you described it.
Well, I think if I remember correctly, one of the things in creating panels and things, I worked a lot with artists when I was at Flagpole magazine. I was interviewing every local band, and I knew their concerns and their questions, and I finally felt like I had some answers or could bring in people with answers, and I was so excited to share that. And then we would have, a conference, and it was all industry people and not the artists, and it was so frustrating. And I know we're talking, preaching to the choir here. If you're here, you're in the right place, and you're getting the information. But sometimes translating, providing the opportunity is so frustrating because if a musician hears a conference panel, that doesn't sound like something applies to their world when we're really, trying to reach out. So any ideas on how to maybe better educate and reach out and say this is relevant to your interests would be helpful.
Yeah. I have one other pushback I'd like to quickly add. Just last week, I went to this cool thing in New York where the Featured Artist Coalition had invited me to be part of a panel that was going to be between only artists in New York City. It was very small and intimate. And then they were going to bring in Spotify after the initial 45 minutes that was closed to speak directly to Spotify about how Spotify is trying to improve the service to pay out artists correctly. I guess that means matching how the money used to look like when they made CDs, artists made CDs. And I was completely way in over my head. Like, I came in all like, oh, this is what I've learned, this is what I think about Spotify, this is why I actually really like Spotify and streaming services in general. But I wasn't aware of the pains that the audience members had gone through. I had no idea about that. And I had a good learning moment because I got my ass kicked, Michelle. Like, I got my ass kicked. There's one guy was Tom Waits' guitarist. He stood up. He's like, are you kidding me? Like, where is he? Oh, he kicked my ass. Yeah, Mark, exactly. That's who it was. So Mark stands up. He's here tomorrow. Well, mark my words, he taught me a lot in that moment. So he's kicking my ass. He's like, you don't know what you're talking about. I spent $7,000 to make my CD. I put it on Spotify, and I get a check for like $17. Let's talk about that. And I said, okay, does anyone else on the panel want to take that one?
Like we said, we have all the answers here.
So I think the pushback comes from, as a young person, wanting to be hopeful and wanting to contribute, but then that clashing with other people's realities, and that's something that I'm also trying to balance. Wanting to be a positive contributor to what's going on without being naive to what somebody who's been in the industry for far longer than I have has actually experienced.
And I think finding the outlet to actually represent artists' interests is more challenging than I thought it would be. The organizations that I thought represent artists actually, represent labels or publishers or industry and not the artists themselves. And so finding, organizations like Future Music that I think actually speak to the songwriters and the recording artists is rare and exciting when you can find it, but challenging. So I think we're out of time, but thanks everybody for attending this panel.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you to
great.
Casey for having us. Thanks to the Policy Summit. Have a great afternoon.